Previously on Amazon Heartbeat, we documented the work of the Vine Trust from Bo'ness in Scotland and Union Biblica Peru. The partners created a unique floating jungle health service for 100,000 people in Amazonia and built accommodation and schools for abandoned street boys in Peruvian cities. In Ica province, a new centre was being built at the edge of the world's driest desert, the Atacama, near the peaceful seaside towns of Ica and Pisco. Then, disaster struck. A massive earthquake measuring 8 on the Richter scale ripped through the province, and the partners had to suddenly reassess their priorities. Our cameramen were first on the scene, and the harrowing images they filmed build an extraordinary picture of life and death in the immediate aftermath of large-scale devastation. And it reveals how two small charities react to a very real emergency. Just before midnight on August 15, 2007, an earthquake measuring a devastating 8 on the Richter scale hit the central coast of Peru. The tremor was so powerful that the shock waves rocked the capital over 100 miles away.
This was a major earthquake that left about 300,000 people homeless. That resulted in probably about 1,000 people losing their lives. And communities, some who are very poor communities to start with, quite literally lost everything.
¿Esta casa era de cuántos pisos?
No, esta era de uno solo nomás, sino que el adobe todo se la...
¿La que está al fondo?
Sí, al fondo ahí, esa celeste, y mire abajo no puedo ni entrar porque la pared se echaba así. La puerta está...
Mi mamá.
The epicenter was located 93 miles south of Lima, at a depth of 19 miles beneath the surface of the Earth. The quake lasted 2 long minutes. The cities of Pisco, Ica and Chincha Alta were most affected. However, Pisco itself was 80% destroyed, and more than 58,000 homes were lost. As the corpses pile up in the main square, relatives frantically scramble to identify the bodies in the forlorn hope that their missing loved ones are not among the dead.
Salido corriendo.
No sabe hasta ahora.
Hasta ahora, toda la noche esperando, hasta ahora no sé. La familia González.
¿Quién se ha quedado adentro,
Mi señora, mi señora Carmen Almeida. Carmen, mi señora con billetecita, parece que debe estar ahí, porque todo eso se ha caído para allá.
The death toll is expected to be over 1,000, with many thousands more injured. Men, women, children buried in hundreds of tons of rubble.
Lo encontraron.
Claro, lo encontraron, estuvo caminando y de repente se quedó sin caminar.
Tiene la columna lesionada.
Así es.
¿Cómo se llama él? Perdón, ¿es hembra o macho?
Some buildings collapsed simply because of shoddy construction work in areas where other homes were left untouched. Many lives could have
Mira que en el primer piso, los 4 pisos se han quedado arriba ya, pero esa parte se ha venido abajo porque en la parte de lo que era el tragamonedas cuando funcionaba, para ampliar lo que era el área de máquinas, cortaron las columnas para ampliar la sala. Las columnas en esa parte no existían, pero acá todavía están las columnas, ¿no? Por eso este piso, esta parte ha aguantado, pero esa parte se ha caído, se hundió. ¿Por qué? Porque en esa parte no habían columnas, las habían cortado al ras. 2 pisos están sumergidos. Todavía hay gente que hasta ayer han sacado gente de acá.
Señora, Gina, señora, ¿cuántos años tiene? ¿Edad?
The overworked doctors struggle to relieve the pain and suffering of their many injured patients. Desperate people frantically try to find out if their relatives are dead, badly injured, or being taken to hospital. The police are struggling to keep ambulances moving. It's a terrible predicament, and people inevitably lose their temper.
Cuidado su mano, cuidado su mano, cuidado su mano. Vamos, vale.
In Ica, where work was already underway on building a new street children's centre, Union Biblica is already heading to the disaster zone to set up feeding centres. They even divert tents normally used in their camping programmes to provide temporary shelter for the homeless.
The earthquake hit here at night time, and that first night, of course, there were no tents or anything. The people just slept out on the roadside. And it's very cold here at night, and the desert is bright and sunny in the daytime, and extremely cold because this, as you know, in the southern hemisphere is the middle of our winter. And a lot of these people have brought their belongings out into the street. They don't have that much to start with, but whatever was left, they pulled out of the rubble, and they brought it right out into the street itself.
Forensic scientists from the police department are called in to try to help identify the victims.
¿Cuántas personas estamos hablando fallecidas hasta ahora?
Más de 300.
Dr. Sonia Lopez, the health minister, arrives to take charge of these vital issues. Lack of sanitation and clean water can cause disease to spiral out of control.
No puede conseguir una mesa para que puedan trabajar.
La cámara más para allá,
Una carpeta de un colegio, algo.
No, aquí vamos avanzando.
Es que tenemos que escúcheme, empadronar a los deudos. Tenemos que ver el tema de los certificados de defunción. Y tenemos que ver a ese
¿no? Yo le dije, doctor, ¿cómo va a ser con las autopsias? ¿Cómo va a ser con los certificados? Me dijo, alcalde, nombre, apellido del difunto, la persona que lo reconoce, su DNI, firma y se acabó, me dijo. Así me dijo el presidente.
Pero nosotros queremos hacer eso en forma de...
Son cientos de...
Así es.
The president of Peru, Dr. Alan Garcia Perez, arrives on site to personally oversee the situation. All the local people want is practical help, and the sooner the better.
¡No dejas este pueblo! ¡No dejas este pueblo!
No, señorita, déjeme trabajar. Déjeme trabajar. ¿Dónde está el carro?
That in real terms, these people will get very little help. It will be a generation before these people get back to where they were at. And where they were at was barely anywhere along the road to economic well-being and economic opportunity.
The mass exodus has started as, ironically, aid trucks arrive. Desperate, starving people on the outskirts try to persuade drivers and emergency aid workers to part with life-saving scraps. There is no food, drinking water, electricity, sanitation, or help. Their situation is truly desperate.
Estamos dejativos, no tenemos ni agua, ni luz, nada, todos estamos dejados nosotros a un lado. Estamos en lote nuevo todavía.
¿Desde qué hora está acá usted?
Yo estoy acá ahorita desde las 6 de la mañana.
¿Y hasta qué hora se
Sí, ahorita nada. Así no, yo tengo 5 hijos y no me abastece nada, señorita, hay que ser sincero, Yo acá he traído de mi lugar a fin que mis hijos que estudien bien, que no se quede así como nosotros. Y ahora mire esta cosa que nos pasa.
The terrible earthquake that caused immeasurable devastation and human suffering happened at the boundary between the Nazca and South American tectonic plates. Experts say that although coastal Peru has a history of seismic activity, this particular kind of earthquake is produced only once every 100 years. Small consolation for the survivors.
Están tratando de reconocer por acá, por acá.
Body bags are everywhere, but there are not enough coffins to go round. However, much needed help in these tragic circumstances has been promised by another Latin American country.
Llegó el presidente de la República antes con el premier y el presidente del Congreso de la República. Manifestaron que iban a donar los ataúdes. Pues como ustedes pueden apreciar la cantidad de cuerpos que hay esperando que llegue el ataúd, me manifiestan que recién han llegado al aeropuerto.
Me ha llegado una cifra menor.
Menor a los que hay esperando ataúd. Entonces es necesario que sea responsable.
Slowly but surely, painful but essential emergency measures move efficiently into place.
¡Traiga seguridad! La fiscal de la Nación ya firmó un acta. Los nichos son gratis. Los que han pagado los 700 soles, mañana se lo van a devolver. ¿Ah?
706 están cobrando.
706 soles, mañana se le van a devolver. Ya la fiscal de la nación.
Mañana no devuelve.
Sí.
Hay que ir a esperar allá.
No. Pero aseguren el cajón y van al nicho gratis. El nicho gratis. Le dan un documento para el número de nicho.
148 people died when a cathedral in the city's main square collapsed. In another church, the local priest was saved by diving under the solid communion table during the service. 19 of his parishioners perished. Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, Secretary of State of the Vatican, surveys the scene with local priest Alfonso Barral. But another disaster occurred on that fateful day, and the West was oblivious.
What wasn't reported over here was that there was a 6-meter tsunami that came in and struck the coastal strip.
El día del terremoto que se salió el mar. Y a raíz de eso se ha hecho hueco todo. Se ha quebrado toda la pista. Y ahí se está secando.
Y se quedaron con los peces.
Eso viene todo.
Toda esta parte era el parque del Maricón.
Realmente quisiera que por favor vengan a ayudarnos a sacar los escombros y que nos traigan agua, porque ayer ninguna autoridad ha hecho nada por nosotros.
No tenemos nada.
Estamos en Pisco Playa.
Water is absolutely essential for the health and welfare of the residents, and people are increasingly desperate to get their hands on even the smallest drop of the precious liquid. The added problem is that the province of Ica is at the edge of the Atacama Desert, the driest desert in the world. The new Street Children's Centre becomes an unusual source of relief during the ongoing emergency. The newly built swimming pool contains fresh water. It is pumped directly from the pool into containers and then into an old tanker hired by the Vine Trust to distribute to the parched, homeless survivors.
En esta zona carece de agua. Vine Trust está trayendo agua gratuitamente. Gracias a ellos, todas estas personas se benefician con este líquido elemento.
In the town, it's a very different story. It's financial aid that is desperately needed. Far away in Scotland, what was the Vine Trust's response to the emergency?
The earthquake was on the Wednesday evening, and on the Saturday morning we had within Peru $150,000 to be spent as an immediate response to the earthquake, and we launched on our website an earthquake appeal. And that money was sent to do two things. One, to open 4 feeding centres to provide food to kids that weren't going to get any food, and also to accelerate the construction of a new street children's centre in the city of Ica itself, because we knew there were street children before the earthquake, so it would be much more difficult for them, in many ways even more vulnerable, to be able to survive after the earthquake.
Because of their quick thinking, decisive decision-making and swift turnaround, funds from this tiny Scottish charity arrived faster than relief from the governments of any wealthy first world countries.
This is one of the 4 feeding centers that have been set up by the Vine Trust and Scripture Union Peru. It's a cooperative effort being done here in the city of Pisco after this terrible earthquake that has left tens of thousands of people homeless and many people died in the earthquake. And this dining room here we've set up for 100 children. And those of us in Scripture Union Peru are immensely grateful to our friends in Scotland who through the Vine Trust have provided the funds to keep these 4 dining rooms going for the next foreseeable time, perhaps 2-3 months, who knows. We'll be here as long as we're needed till these people can get back to some form of normal life. We feed these children twice a day. We give them 2 meals, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And as you know, many of them are under severe shock, having had their homes fall around them. Some of them have lost their parents. Others, of course, who are not here have been injured and taken to hospitals.
These people, it will take them years to recover from a major, major tragedy. And it's remarkably sad that we can't do more. But that's what we've been able to do.